Hi. Good evening, everybody. My poem tonight is called A Time for God. The time has come to laugh. The time has come to love. The time has come to see the world through children's eyes. The time has come to embrace our fellow man. The time has come to pray. The time has come to get closer to Hashem. And Hashem will grant us a long life if we truly make time for Him.
Actually getting better and better. I don't know if everybody realizes, but every week Hashem gets mentioned more. I think it was like 15 times in today's poem. So it's Baruch Hashem. 20?
No, she's counting up to 20.
She's counting up to 20. Okay. Ready? Everything's on? Call Wallerstein, call this. This is here. That's there. What? Yeah. Okay, I'll read it. Okay. So this week we're going to learn every day. We spoke about this before. Every day in the Sphira. So when you count Sphira, after the Sphira, there's yesterday was Netzach Shebenetzach. There's Netzach. There's Hod. There's Yesod. There's Malchus. There's Chesed. So each one stands for another midah, something that we need to grow that day, that week. And we start off, we spoke last week with Chesed Shebechesed. The first day is Chesed Shebechesed. And we end with Malchus Shebemalchus. And it's sort of 49 steps. You have to climb 49 steps till you get to the 50th step, which is Shavuos, which is Matan Torah. So the question is, even though we know all these days of growth, but how does one grow? It's something that I think maybe a lot of us teachers and therapists, you know, we make statements to kids, we make statements to people, but we don't tell them how. Be happy. You know, how? You can't just tell me to be happy. You know, change your attitude. Your attitude has to change. Okay, my attitude has to change. How? The how is not really taught, including myself. Get close to Hashem. Okay, I want to get close to Hashem. So now what? How do I do that, right? How do I change my attitude? You have to have inner happiness. Sounds great, no, Nancy? It's very poetic, right? Right. Come on, what's wrong with you? You have to have inner happiness.
Easier said than done.
Right. So every person has to, okay. So I want to have inner happiness. So what? It's take an inner happiness pill, right? And also pop this pill and have inner happiness. So one of the problems is that we go to shiurim and we listen to tapes, and especially in Sphira, right? That's what most of my tapes I listen to, because you can't listen to music, so you have no choice. And in these tapes, we're advised on many things to change, to grow. But how? You can't just be a miserable person and go to a shir and then walk out that door and be a happy person. Well, how? Like why? Like what? And even if something was said in the shir, it's like, wow, I never realized that. It doesn't stick. So today, we're going to learn a Medrash Rabbah in Koheles. And this Medrash Rabbah, everything's in the Torah. This Medrash Rabbah is going to teach us how. Not just what to do, but how to do it. So it's the actual, if you want to look it up, it is the first Medrash in Koheles. Shlomo HaMelech wrote 3 books. One was Shir HaShirim, which if any of you looking for a shidduch, you know you have to say 40 days in a row, right? So Shir HaShirim, if you read it, it's very, very beautiful, very hopeful, and very positive. and very optimistic, and very romantic. And Shlomo Melech wrote it when he was very young. Very beautiful, Shir Shirim. Koheles, very critical, very depressing. He goes through life, and pretty much at the end of the whole Koheles, he says, Hakol Hevel Havolim. At the end of the day, there's nothing. It's all a waste of time. Ki'im Yiras Hashem. The only thing you have is your fear and your relationship with God. Everything else, your money is gone, your body is gone, everything is gone. And no matter how famous you are, or no matter what you did in your life, you will be forgotten. And he writes it in Koheles. Your kids might remember you when you go to the bank after they get their inheritance, you know. Hey, mom left me some money, you know. They might remember a story, a picture, look through the wedding albums by the Shiva. But that wedding album, that's it. They don't look through it again after the Shiva. So Shlomo Melech is like very depressing in Koheles. At the end of the day, everything's forgotten. The only thing that's left is your relationship with HaKadosh Baruch Hu, and if you wrote a sefer, you changed somebody's life, but pretty much all the money and all the other stuff that you did, your education, all that stuff, you don't go up to Shemayim with a bachelor's or a master's. So all that stuff is left behind. So it's very depressing. If you read Koheles, it's amazing, it's brilliant. But he wrote it when he was very old. So that optimism of life is great and life's going to be amazing and romance and all that stuff, he lived through everything. He had 1,000 wives. He lived through everything. At the end, he said everything is nothing. It's all nothing. All the physical things in this world are nothing. In between, mid-age, between when he was young and hopeful and old and more critical and negative, it wasn't negative, it was real. It wasn't negative, it was real. He wrote Mishlei. Eishes Chayil is in Mishlei. He wrote Mishlei. So he wrote these 3 books, 3 very holy books that we find in Tanakh, in Ksuvim. So he says like this. Divrei Koheles ben David. Shlomo HaMelech was called Koheles because he gathered all the wisdom of the world. He was very into wisdom, and he learned all the wisdom of the world. Kahal, Koheles, Kahal means to gather. So he was called Shlomo HaMelech, but also called Koheles. So Divrei Koheles ben David Melech Yerushalayim. The words of Koheles, the son of David, the king in Yerushalayim. Zeh she'ama hakasav b'ruach hakodesh ayidei Shlomo Melech Yisrael. These words were written with Ruach HaKodesh by Shlomo, the king of Yisrael. In Mishlei, Perek Chav Beis, Pasuk Chav Tes. And it says the following in Mishlei. Chazisa ish mohir b'malachto. If you watch a man, a person, a human, who is very fast, very conscientious of his work, Lifnei milachim yisyatzov. He will stand in front of kings. That's what it says in Mishlei. At the end of the day, somebody that works and doesn't procrastinate, he will end up standing in front of kings. What that means, what is he trying to say here? It's a little hard to understand. But he's going to explain. And he says the following story, and this is the shir tonight, this story. Maisa, there's a story by Rabbi Chanina ben Dosa. By Rabbi Chanina ben Dosa, he was very, very famous. Shira ben Eiro, he saw the people of his city, Ma'alin Nidarim Unadavas Yerushalayim. It was in the times of the Beis HaMikdash, and Rabbi Chanina ben Dosa was very poor. He had nothing. But the other people in his town, they had bikurim, they had fruits, they had animals to bring for kabbanos. So everybody was going up to Yerushalayim, to the Beis HaMikdash, and everybody had something to bring to the Beis HaMikdash. Omar, he said, Hakol ma'alin Yerushalayim, the Darmud Davos. Look, Everybody's going to Yerushalayim, and they're bringing presents and offerings and sacrifices to HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Va'ani, and I, eini maladover. I'm not bringing anything. I don't have anything. I'm not bringing anything. So he felt very alone. Number one, for a person to change, is to come to the realization where they're at. It's the number one. If you're in denial of where you're at, then you won't be able to change. In addiction, so if a kid tells me, Rabbi, you want me to go to a drug rehab? You take me and you pay for me, then I'll go. Waste of time.
No responsibility.
He's not taking responsibility. He's also not saying that he has a problem. You think I have a problem? So you pay for it. And you take me. If he thought he had a problem, he would check himself in. He'd get on a bus. He'd borrow money. Whatever it is. The person knows he's sick. He's going to go to the hospital. So the first step here in this story of Rav Chanina Mendoza, we're going to dissect it. The first step in change is realizing I am not bringing anything to the table. At the end of the day, I'm not making this world a better place. There are people who are changing the world, who are making the world a better place. But Ani, he says, I'm not doing nothing. I'm not offering anything. Cheshbon HaNefesh is the first step in a person growing and changing. Cheshbon HaNefesh means to look at yourself and to figure out, what am I doing here? So he starts off and he says, Bani eni maladava. I'm not bringing anything. When you come to realization that all the stuff that you're doing is very self-centered and you're not really doing anything for the world, that's the first step in realizing that you have to change. Not because Rabbi Wallerstein gave you a good speech. You have to own your change. If you change because of me, or your teacher, or a good book that you read, or a good tape that you heard, it's not going to stick. If you change because of you, because you realize you're not doing what you're supposed to, then it'll stick. Because you own that change. If I cause you to change, I own your change. And that means if I'm not around, or you're not in a place that I could catch you doing the wrong thing, then you will do the wrong thing. Because I got you to change. He's not here, so now I can go back to what I was doing. But once you change, you own it. If you own it, it sticks. I spoke about this. When I stopped going to movies 15 years ago, that was my decision. I didn't stop going because my father told me. I didn't stop going because my wife told me. I stopped going because I realized I'm a Rabbi. And to give over Torah the way I'm supposed to, I can't watch movies. So people ask me, like, so do you ever think you want to go back and, it's a good movie, you want to see it? Are you struggling with it? And the answer is no, because it was my decision. If you made that decision for me, yeah, I'd be struggling with it. It was my decision. If it's my decision to stop smoking, I'll never smoke again. But if I stop smoking because my wife said, you have to stop smoking, or someone told me I have to stop smoking, then whenever I'm at a wedding and nobody's watching and a guy I can mooch a cigarette, I'll mooch a cigarette. But when I make that decision, and I own that decision, then it cannot change. But I can only own that decision if I realize that I have a problem. And most people are in the big word, the big D word. Most people are in denial. There's nothing wrong. Doesn't mean you should walk around depressed, just the opposite. when you go to a doctor and you don't feel well, and they can't figure out what's wrong with you, it's the worst thing. Because you don't know what medicine to take. And usually, you think it's much worse than what it is. In other words, you go to a doctor and you're all nervous, and they find out what it is. You know what it is, you go home, whatever has to be done has to be done. But you go to a doctor and they don't know what it is, you're thinking cancer for sure. You're thinking the worst diseases for sure, I'm going to die, I'm not going to make it, it's over. Calm down. What are you getting crazy for? And the answer is, because if they don't know what it is, it could be the worst. So when a person doesn't ID, why am I depressed? What's going on with me? When you don't ID that, when you don't spend time trying to figure out what it is, so then you think, oh my God, it's clinical, it's chronic, it's this, it's that. You start getting even more depressed because I'm sick, I'm mentally, because you don't know what it is. So the first thing a person has to do is a cheshbon hanefesh, is to know what it is. Once it is, no matter how bad it is, we can treat it. When we don't know what it is, we can't treat it. So that's what he says. This is the first thing that Chanina Mendoza said. I don't have anything. Now that I came to the realization I have nothing, I got to do something about it. If I realize I have nothing, I have to do something about it. What am I going to do about it? I have to find something. If I realize I'm not happy, and I realize I'm a miserable person, I have to do something about it. If I don't realize it, why would I do anything about it? So what did Rabbi Chanina Mendoza do? He doesn't have any money. What does he do? So the Medrash says the following. Fascinating story. So, what did he do? Yatsa lamidbara shel iro. He went outside of his city to the desert. Now, everything in the desert is hefker. It doesn't belong to anybody. Whatever you find belongs to you. So, he goes into the desert. V'ra Hashem even achas. He sees a big stone. V'shivava, v'sitza, umerka. He chisels it. He sands it down, the stone, and he squares it off. V'amar, and he says, Harei alai, I take it upon myself. That's when you make a neder. It's like a promise. I take it upon myself. La haloisa liYerushalayim. I'm going to take this stone. Everyone else has stuff. I don't have, and I'm going to bring this beautiful stone that I worked on, and I sanded and I sanded it and I chiseled it, and it's smooth and it's square and it's a beautiful stone. I'm going to bring that to Yerushalayim. Now the question is, the Beis Hamikdash was built. What are you going to do with the stone? So the Medrash explains that he was going to sell it for buildings. It's a beautiful stone. And he was going to use that money to give a present to the Beis Hamikdash. That was his plan. So number one. Number two, actually. So he realized he had nothing. Did he get depressed and sit down and cry? Everybody has something. I don't have anything. You're going to get nowhere in life if that's how you're going to react. Did he go have to speak to someone and fetch at $150 every 45 minutes? My life is miserable. Everybody has food and animals. And go for 2 years and complain about it? Or he said, I have to figure out how to take a life that has nothing and find something and make it into something. A rock. Everybody's going down with animals and fruit. And he said, a rock. I could take something, an innate object. But if I work, chisel, sand, cut, and I work on this innate object, I can take something that has no value and I can make it into a beautiful stone, take it to Yerushalayim, sell it, and give that money to the Beis Hamikdash. Didn't get depressed, didn't give up. What he said is that no matter what situation you're in, if you're willing to work, not just to sit back, but you're willing to chisel, to sand, to cut, to work, from nothing, from a person who thinks they have no talent, from nothing, if you do work, will come something that is as valuable, or maybe we'll see more valuable than the stuff that everyone else brought.
Is poetry work?
What?
Is poetry?
Poetry is beautiful. This is poetry. This is poetry. Shir Shirim, which is Shlomo HaMelech's, it's all poem. It's a whole poem. It's a huge poem. It's called Kaddish Kedushim.
But the society does not consider poetry to be work.
When you say a poem, when you talk about Hashem, right, you're taking words and you're creating something with them that's very beautiful. So it's better than even a rock. Words are the most powerful thing. The difference between us and animals is animals are chai, we're alive, and we're medaber, we talk, we speak. Words are the most powerful thing that a human being has, used correctly. Or chas v'shalom, the most destructive thing a person has, used incorrectly. You, Baruch Hashem, you built a whole building of poems. But chas v'shalom, other people write things that rhyme. That's called rap music. It also rhymes. Destructive, hatred, fear. So words can be used in many different ways. So, now he's got a problem. Now he's got a problem. What do you think his problem is? Anyone here know what his problem is? What's his problem? What? It's much too heavy. How does he get this rock to Yerushalayim? Very nice. You worked on it. You smoothed it. You chiseled it. But it's too heavy. So what does he do? Bikesh lisko loy po'alim. So he said, okay, I'm going to go hire some workers. Nizmu loy chamisha b'nei adam. So he went over to 5 people, 5 human beings. Amalahen, he said to them, Malinli atem eben zu Yerushalayim. Could you please take this stone for me to Yerushalayim? Amulo. So the 5 people said to him, no problem. Tein lanu chamisha slom. Pay us 5 slom. V'onu malim oisay Yerushalayim. And then we'll carry it for you to Yerushalayim. We're not going to do it for free. Bikesh litein lahem. He went looking in his pockets to pay them. V'lei nimtza biyadai dava. And he couldn't find anything in his hands to pay them. Question. What was he thinking? We said in the beginning of the story that he had nothing. So what is he thinking, telling these people, by the way, I need someone to write, and they're saying 5 slum. What is he looking in his pockets for? He knew he had nothing in his pockets. He knew that when he started. If he had money in his pockets, he could have bought something. He didn't have to go through this whole thing. Question number 1. Question number 2, which is the big one about life. Imagine working on a stone. And it doesn't say in the Medrash how long, but it was probably a very long time that he worked on this stone. And you're chiseling it, and you're polishing it. You're working, and you're working, and you're working, and you're working. And then you have nobody to carry it, to bring it to Yerushalayim. You just wasted so much time. So now, you have a beautiful stone in the middle of the desert. So what he should have done, if he was smart, or if I would have done this, first, find a way to get the stone to Yerushalayim. Then when the stone's in Yerushalayim, chisel it, polish it, and cut it. Why do all the work first, and then try to figure out how to get it to where it needs to be, get it to where it needs to be, and then do the work? Because it's very possible that you're going to do all this work, and you're not going to be able to move it. So it doesn't make sense what he did here. First he did all the work, then he started looking for someone to move it, take it to Yerushalayim as a raw stone, and then, oh, it's here, so now all I have to do is work and I'll sell it. So why did he do it in reverse? And the answer is, and this is so true, you're going to see the end of the story. And the answer is, many times we say, okay, I'm not doing this right now. I don't have to change right now. I'm not working on myself right now. I will. I promise you, I will. Right now I'm in school. I will. Half a year, I'm going to seminary. I'm going to Israel for seminary. Not in high school. When I get to seminary, everybody changes in seminary. I'll change in seminary. It'll never happen. It'll never happen. When he got the hagosha, when he got the feeling that everybody else is moving but me, everyone else is bringing something to Hashem, but I'm not, he knew that if he doesn't act on that feeling right away, it'll never happen. He'll never polish the rock. He'll never get to Eretz Yisrael. Nothing's going to happen. So immediately, when he felt, oh my gosh, everyone's doing something and I'm not, he immediately took action. He says, I got to work on myself. I got to do this work. The stone, in the representation of the stone in this story, is you. So I don't have anything. I don't have money. I don't have 145 IQ. I don't have anything. The answer is yes, you do. You have you. And if you chisel and you polish and you work on you, you have something very precious. But you have to do that immediately. When you have that feeling that I'm standing still, everyone's moving, I'm standing still. If you're going to say, no, first let's get the rock there, and then I'm going to work on it, you're not going to get the rock there, and you're not going to work on it. And I can tell you that. Every person that tells me I'm going to change when I get to Israel, they change for the worse. You got to change here. I always say that. When parents come to me many times and they say to me, should I send my daughter to seminary? Or more my boys, should I send my boy to yeshiva in Eretz Yisrael? My first question is, what's my first question? What do you think my first question is? When a mother comes to me and says, my girl just graduated high school, should I send her to Israel to seminary? What do you think my first question is?
Does she want to go?
No.
How is she now?
Right. Did she learn in 12th grade? Why do you think if she didn't learn in 12th grade, she couldn't learn here, that she's going to learn over there? So if she learned in 12th grade and she's doing well, we got a shot, even though going to Israel today is very dangerous. There's a lot of drinking, a lot of hanging out, your parents aren't there, there's no one really watching you. It's not such a good place to go anymore for seminary or yeshiva for boys. A lot of girls fall in Israel. It's not worth the ones that make it to watch the ones that fall. A lot of boys, a lot of girls fall in Eretz Yisrael. It's not such a good choice. It used to be, not anymore. There's town, there's a lot of drinking, there's no drinking age in Eretz Yisrael, there's no smoking age in Eretz Yisrael, nobody's watching you. So my first question is, how's she doing now? What makes you think if she's not learning now, that she's going to learn Eretz Yisrael? I would say 99.99% of the time, I am 100% right. If she's not doing well now, it's not a good bet that she's going to do well in Eretz Yisrael. Why? Why should she do well in Eretz Yisrael? She didn't do good here. What's going to be there different? That you're not watching her? That she has total freedom? So if she's doing well here, okay. If she's not doing well here. If you're not learning here, why am I sending you there? First learn here for a year, and then go to Eretz Yisrael. I say many times, go to seminary here for a year, grow, learn, and then go to Eretz Yisrael. Then maybe you have a chance. Because nobody's watching you. So you first have to do well. You first have to work on yourself and chisel and work and work and work. Then you got to figure out how to move. So the story goes on. So, but this is beautiful. This happens to be mostly a shir from Rabbi Freifeld, Oliver Shalom. Not Rosh Shimshon Pincus like usual, but from Rabbi Freifeld. So it says he reached into his pocket. He reached into his pocket. And there was nothing there. But he knew there was nothing there. That's why he went to get a rock, right? And the answer is wrong. Wrong. First of all, Rav Kina Mendoza had many miracles that happened to him. Second of all, just because your pocket is empty before the work is not a proof that it's going to be empty after the work. just because you didn't have good self-esteem. You always have to reach into the pocket. You always have to reach into yourself. Because if you reach into yourself, as you'll see in the story soon, enough times, you will find that the places in yourself, in your soul, and in your mind that are empty, that you feel are empty, that have a void, you will find, if you don't give up, that HaKadosh Baruch Hu will put something in that void. So he was so excited about his stone that he went back into his pocket that he knew was empty with a hope. I did all this work. Maybe there's a miracle and there was some money in my pocket that I didn't feel before. Because after work, you'll find a lot about yourself that you didn't know before. But there wasn't. His pocket was empty. So they said, sayonara. Right? So BKG he wanted to give to them a loy nimtza biyadai davar l'shah. He didn't find anything at that moment. Hinichu v'halchu lahem. They left. You don't want to pay us? Goodbye. So here he is stuck in the desert with his beautiful stone. So right now the story doesn't look good, Rabbi or Wallerstein. You see, you work hard, and you can't pay for it. In the end, you get stuck. So work is not anything. Money is something. What happens? Zeman Lai. Right after these people leave, so now he should really be in depression. He did all this work, right? And he needed some people to carry it, and they said, no. Right after this, Zimen loy HaKadosh Baruch Hu chamisha malachim. God sent in front of him 5 angels. But he didn't know they were angels. B'dmus b'nei Adam. They looked like human beings, like by Avraham Avinu. So he didn't know they were malachim. So now another 5 guys showed up. Amalahem. So Chanina Mendoza said to these 5, Atem Mailen li Even Zu, would you lift up this stone and take it to Israel, to Yerushalayim? Amulo, they said to him, Ten lanu chamisha salam. If you'll pay us, 5 salam, we'll do it. Now listen carefully to how the way the word changes. And we will carry it for you, avnecha, your stone, Yerushalayim, to Yerushalayim. Bilvad, on one condition, shetitein yadcha ve'etzba'acha imanu, that you will put your hand and your finger underneath the stone together with us. Nasan yadai. He put his hand, the etzba yimahem, he put his hand and his fingers with them underneath the stone. The nimtzu, and in a second they found themselves aimdim Yerushalayim. They were standing in Yerushalayim. They didn't take a step, and all of a sudden they were in Yerushalayim. Wow! What did he do? Bikash nitein lehem scharin. He wanted to pay them. Remember, he had no money, right? So how was he going to pay them? V'loy motzana. They were gone. He wanted to pay them, they disappeared. So you know what to do? Nichnas l'lishkas hagazis. He went to the place where Sanhedrin, where Bezdin sits, the Shal b'shvilam. And he said, I don't know what to do. I made a deal to pay, and I gave them my word, and now they disappeared. How am I going to pay them? What do I do? Amrulo, the rabbi said to him, Daime, it seems to be, Shemalachei hashares, that these were angels that serve Hashem. He'elu avnecha, they took your stone, the Yerushalayim. The Karu Olav HaMikra, and they said, you know that pasuk in Mishlei that we said in the beginning? Chazes ish mahir b'malachtai, a person who puts all his strength and speed into his work, lifnei milachim yisyatzov. He will stand in front of kings. Karei be lifnei malachim yisyatzev. He says, they said to him, not milachim, he's going to stand in front of kings, but malachim. A person that works like that is going to stand in front of angels, and that's what happened over here. Question. Why did he think these people were going to carry it and the other people didn't? And the answer was that the second time he said, I'll pay you when we get there. Because he was thinking, let them carry the stone to Yerushalayim. I'll go around collecting tzedakah in Yerushalayim. And when I get the 5 slum, I'll pay them. So let them, the first ones they said, pay us now up front. We don't trust you. We don't have it. So they let him go. They walked away. The second group said, we'll take the payment when you get there. And he was going to pay them. But he couldn't, because he didn't have any money. Now the question is, that how come he didn't know they were malachim? He put his hand under the stone, and all of a sudden he appeared in Yerushalayim. Come on. How'd you get to Yerushalayim? In a second, if they weren't angels. So how come he had to come to court, and the rabbis had to tell him, forget it, you're never going to be able to pay them, they're gone, they're angels. He should have known they were angels. He should have walked in and said, I put my hand on this stone, boom, I was in Yerushalayim. It must be angels. So how come he did not know they were angels? So there's a joke. I'm going to answer it with a joke. So this man from Eretz Yisrael came to my office to collect tzedakah. And he told me the following story. He said like this. If you look in the Navi by Shimshon Hagibar, right, Shimshon Hagibar, so his mother and father didn't have children. She was an akara for a very, very, very long time. She met a malach, a person, but it was a malach. And the malach said to her that next year at this time you're going to be pregnant, you're going to have a baby, but on one condition, that baby can never drink wine, and can never cut his hair, and can never become tameh, because he's going to be a nazir. She ran home, she told her husband, I met this man, he told me that next year I'm going to have a baby, but the baby has to be a nazir. He said, next time you meet this man, I'd like to talk to him. So, she met him again. And he said, build a mizbeach. And bring a carbon on the mizbeach. And it says that the man went up on the mizbeach, into the fire. He went into the fire. And then from the smoke of the carbon, he went, it says in the pasuk, he went up to Shemayim. That's what it says. Then the pasuk says, when Shimshon's father saw that the person didn't come back, he said, wow, he never came back, it must be a malach. So everybody asked the question, because he didn't come back, that's why he's a malach? The man stood in the middle of a fire, and he went up in the smoke. You saw him go to heaven in smoke. That didn't tell you that he's an angel, because he didn't come back. People don't come back. That doesn't mean that they're an angel. What's going on over here? So this collector is telling me this. He says, I'll tell you why. He says, imagine, you don't have children for a very, very long time. And some guy comes to you and gives you a bracha. Next year at this time, you're going to have a child. And the following year, it comes true, the bracha. And you have a child. If that guy doesn't come back for money, for the bracha he gave you, he has to be an angel. This is a joke that this collector told me. He says, he gave him a bracha and it came true, and he didn't come back and say, hey, I gave you a bracha, it came true. He says, he didn't come back, that was the proof. That he got on the fire, that doesn't prove anything. But he didn't come back and ask for money, that's a proof. He said, so I was going to say, over here was the same thing. That they got him here in a second, that doesn't prove anything. But that they didn't ask for the 5 slum, that means they're a malach. So Bezdin was like, they never asked for the money, must be that they're a malach. They were malachim. So the question is, why did these angels tell him that in order to move your rock, you have to put your hand under the stone? Angels don't need human beings' help. And believe me, the stone was tons. Chanina Mendoza's hand under the stone did nothing. So the question is, why did they tell him to do that?
Participation.
Right. So there's a mitzvah in the Torah, and the mitzvah in the Torah says that if you see your friend's donkey overloaded and its back is breaking, right? Azoiv tazoiv imo. Help your friend unload the donkey. Says Rashi that in halacha, if the guy sits on the side, the owner of the donkey, Zecharia, do me a favor. You're here, unload my donkey. Halacha is I don't have to. only if he helps me. In other words, the guy's on the side of the road and he says, hey, Wallerstein, change my tire. And I'm like, okay, can you give me the spare? Can you give me the wrench? No, you do it all yourself. I don't have to help him. Azov, Tazov, Imo, together, if he's willing to help, together, you have to help him. So what the Malachim said was like this. In a person's growth, where our generation is so used to this, you do everything for me. You fix me. You take care of me. No effort from my side. You do everything. You're my therapist. You're my teacher. You're my parents. You do it. I'm just going to sit back and you fix me. You fix me. Give me medicine. Give me a pill. Give me a drug. Give me something. I'm not willing to work. This is not a generation that's willing to work. This generation wants to make money. Just that you go to sleep at night and you have a website and it's selling things. You go to sleep at night poor. You wake up in the morning. There's 900 hits and you wake up rich. That's every guy that I know. That's their dream. Work with your hands? Plumber? Electrician? Are you crazy? Go sell bags from a briefcase? No, send out emails and see what comes back the next morning. Nobody wants to work. Wants to work. Nobody wants to work. It has to be easy and fast. And who sweats today? How many people sweat? How many people actually, at the end of the day, go like this, have sweat coming down their head? 100 years ago, every person at work, they were sweating. Today, you don't sweat. Your fingers are on little buttons. That's it. The people I deal with in business, they tell me, don't call me. Send me an email. Don't call me. I don't answer my phone. It's a big corporations. Don't call me. I will not answer my phone. Email me. Chas v'shalom, you have to pick up the handset. Chas v'shalom, you can email, and that's it. 2 seconds, you don't even have to look at it. Most girls can do that, the way they text. They don't even look at the screen. Just, right? Nobody wants to sweat anymore. Now, Allah said here, you want to move yourself. You want to change. You want to move from one place to the other. You must put your hand under the stone. You can't sit and watch us do it. Because it's not going to move that way. You have to put in something into this partnership with HaKadosh Baruch Hu. And in Shidduchim, right, it's a very big question in how much you have to put in. Right? What's the Hebrew word for it? Shtadlus. What does Hishtadlus mean? Hishtadlus means putting your hand under the rock. Not just sitting back and say, okay, God, take care of it. So they told him how much Hishtadlus. We need you to put your hand under the rock. But it was no longer the rock. They called it Avnecha, your rock. Because you worked on it. In Jewish law, so there's something called hefker. Hefker means that it doesn't belong to anybody. Example. You're walking on the beach on Coney Island and you find a seashell. It's hefker. Nobody owns a seashell. You can take it home. It doesn't belong to New York City. It doesn't belong to the ocean. It doesn't belong to the beach. It's a seashell. You can take it home. If I take something and say, I don't want it anymore, it's hefker, how do you make it yours? How do you make a kinyan? We call it a kinyan. How do you make it yours? So, if you find a rock in the desert, you're going up bare mountains, climbing bare mountains, there's a rock. And you take that rock, and you sharpen it, and you shine it, and you clean it, and you make it into whatever you want to make it into a arrowhead, whatever it is that you want to make it into. Halachically, that rock now belongs to you. Why? Ayudei shinoi. Because you affected a change in the object. If you affect a change in the object, then that object belongs to you. It's the same thing with yourself. If you work on yourself and you affect a change on the object, on you, because you worked on yourself, then you're kinda yourself. Then you belong to you, not to the Satan anymore. You don't belong to the evil inclination. If you work on yourself, you make a kinyan. It becomes avnecha. It becomes your stone, becomes your soul, it becomes your body. My body doesn't belong to everybody else. It belongs to me. And my soul belongs to me, not to the devil. But if I just sit there and just chill, then it doesn't belong to me because I did no work and I caused no change and I did no shinoi, and then it belongs to whoever gets it first. Hefker goes whoever gets it first. So the person who works on themselves doesn't belong to anybody else. But the person who's just like, it's just about chilling, you know? You don't got to do nothing. You just got to sit back. You belong first come, first serve. And the first one that shows up is the Satan, as the Zecharia. So what he says over here is became from Even to Avlacha. Became from a stone to his stone. And the angels also called it Avlacha, and Bezdin called it Avlacha. One more point. That's very important. So when I first learned this medrash, I understood it's very understandably, like you said, right, that we're not going to lift this rock without you, even though we don't need you, because we're angels. We don't need your help. But if a human being wants something to move, he's got to do something. You can't just sit back there and pop a pill. You got to do something, right? That's how we learned it. The explanation on this medrash is amazing, and he says the following. He says, I want to read it to you from inside. So they told him, Lahachzik ulisa even imanu. Come, hold on to the stone and carry it with it. Below bikshu kesef miyad. They didn't ask for the money up front. After we finish. And he was sure he had bitochen belief in God. Shesham yazmin kesef. That when he gets to Yerushalayim, he'll collect the money. Okay. Now what happened? Listen carefully. When they asked him to put his hand under the stone, Amru, they said it, they said it to him like, we need some help from you. Help us out. Don't forget, he didn't know they were angels. Ube'emes, but really, his kavanu, the angel's thought, kavana was, Kidei lisa gam oisa imahem ba'afifasim zuli Yerushalayim. This is a huge chiddush. Why did they tell him to put his hand underneath the stone? Not like we said, that they wanted him to be part of it, not to just sit back. Because they knew that they were about to do a miracle. They were about to fly with this stone to Yerushalayim. If he's not holding on to the stone, then he's not going to go with them. So they told him, we need you to hold on to the stone, because when this stone moves, if you're not holding on to this stone, if you let go of this stone, then the stone's going to get to Yerushalayim, but you're not. Nothing to do with helping, just the opposite. This is the greatest lesson in life. God doesn't need us to help. Hashem doesn't need us to help Him help us. But if we're not connected to Hashem, when the move happens, we're left behind. So we connect to Hashem. He's the flyer. He's the one that's going to make you move in life. He's the one. Why do you have to be? Everyone wants to be connected to Hashem. I want to connect to Hashem. Rabbi Wallerstein, teach me how to connect to Hashem. What do you need to connect to Hashem for? To connect to Hashem for. So what the Medrash is telling us here is, because Hashem is what makes everything move. If you're not holding on to Him, then you're not going to move. So if He wasn't holding on to the stone was going to move. And all His work was going to go to Yerushalayim without Him. So therefore, every Jewish person, all the mitzvahs and all the work that you do, but if you're not connected to Hashem, then there's no movement. You yourself are not going to be able to move. You're not going to be able to fly. That's why they told him to put his hand underneath the stone. So this is a very big lesson. And how? Number one, to realize that I don't have anything. I'm not doing anything. I'm not giving anything. I'm standing here. I have all these kaiches. I'm not using them. Understanding that you don't have to be a millionaire to give something to someone else. You can give them happiness. You can give them a smile. You can give them a personality. You can give them a thank you. You can give them from a stone. You can take a stone and turn it into something beautiful. But you have to work. And to understand that even if your pocket's empty, if you keep reaching in and reaching in and reaching in, you're not going to even need the money. Hashem's going to send angels that don't need the money. Before his emunah, so he needed money. He said, you don't have money, goodbye. But then when he showed he had emunah, Baruch said, you don't even need money now. Hizamnu malachim, he sent them angels. So you work and you work and you work, you say, I don't have what it takes. You're right, you may not have what it takes. But you won't need it. Because he's the one that's going to carry the rock. He's the one that's going to send the malachim to help you. It's amazing. This is Shlomo Melech, of course. This is Kohelet. It's an amazing Medrash Rabbah. And how do you make your neshama yours? How does it become yours? How do you kona your soul? By working on it. Chiseling. Polishing. Thinking what I need to change. Then it becomes yours. And once it becomes yours, nobody can take it away. So I want to end with a story. Last week I told you about in Pasha Vayera that when it comes to Chesed, right, it says in the pasuk Vayar twice. But you have to have a double look. I want to tell you something interesting. Whoever doesn't understand what I'm saying because they're too young, so be it. They don't need to understand it. Whoever does understand it, you can hear something very interesting. So, I spoke last night for an organization called Mikveh Yisrael. They build women's mikvahs all over the United States in little small towns. They built so far 23 mikvahs. It's a lot of mikvahs. Now, one of my biggest customers that I had was a customer called Tower Records, which was in Sacramento, California. I used to fly to Sacramento a lot. They had a shul, but they didn't have a women's mikvah. And they used to complain to me that they had to drive to San Francisco, was the closest place that had a mikvah. San Francisco is 2 hours on a good day. 2 hours on a good day from Sacramento. So the woman would have to drive to San Francisco 2 hours, then go to the mikvah, spend the time, bath, whatever she had to do, and then go back. Round trip, 5 hours to go to the mikvah. In Flatbush, it's 5 minutes. There's a mikvah on every corner. 5 hours. And they told me this. I'm a New Yorker. I'm like, hey, that's part of living out of town, man. You live out of town. You got to go 2 hours each way. That's the way it is. You live in Brooklyn, you don't got that problem. I didn't feel bad. Not so bad. Okay, so she'll travel 5 hours. What happened was that, and I heard about this organization. Okay, build mikvahs, small towns. Who told you to live in a small town? You know what I'm saying? Live in a big town. Live in St. Louis. Live in Chicago. What happened? So I spoke last night, and I did a lot of research before I spoke. I spoke for this organization to help them raise money. If there's no mikvah in the town, then Friday night, the woman can't go to mikvah because she can't get to it. It's in San Francisco. If you're going to walk to San Francisco, it's going to take 3.5 days. So that means that a woman who has to go to the mikvah Friday night, she misses that night. She can't go. If there's no mikvah in walking distance, so you skip Friday night. Okay, the end of the world, so you wait one more day. Right? Also, don't get all bent out of shape. It's not nice, but l'mais, if there's no mikvah, what are you going to do? So you wait one more day, no. Don't get crazy. In Sacramento, it meant 2 days. Because they said after Shabbos, she can't go Friday night, she has to go Motzei Shabbos. But to start driving from Sacramento to San Francisco, Motzei Shabbos, and it's 5 hours. And then if there's people from San Francisco, the Sacramento people have to wait online. So they might have to wait 2 hours to get into the mikvah. So it could be 6-7 hours round trip. We're going to get home at 4 o'clock in the morning anyway, so why bother? So Friday night they didn't go, Motzei Shabbos they didn't go. So they missed 2 nights. And then we go Sunday. Okay! The end of the world? It's not good. But who told you to live in Sacramento? Now let me tell you what Avraham Avinu was saying in Vayar twice. So I only had the first look at it. Vayar. It's not the end of the world. Missed one night. It's not the end of the world, even though it is the end of the world. But it's not the end of the world. But if you take a second look, girls, at the situation, then you would build a mikveh so fast in Sacramento, you would raise that money in 2 seconds. But I didn't raise the money because I only had the first look. And I'm like, okay, so you'll drive to San Francisco, Motzei Shabbos. So it'll take 7 hours. No. What's the second look? So these guys who build mikvahs, so there's a woman who, they just built a mikvah in Sacramento. They just built a beautiful mikvah in Sacramento. When they finished building it,
How much does it cost?
a mikvah? Well, they put the seed money in. A nice mikvah is about $400,000. 250 to 400, yeah. The bar, yeah. They have to build a nice mikvah. A woman's mikvah, yeah. And now they have special machines if a woman's a paraplegic. That machine alone is $100,000. So it's an expense. But this organization raises, and they start the seed money, and then the community builds it. You can build a mikvah. The Sephardic mikvah was $4 million. I mean, it depends on how you build a mikvah. Okay, anyway, that's not the point I want to make. So they finished building this mikvah. Now, some people understand what I'm about to say, some people won't. Doesn't matter. But I just want you to understand the second look. And last night, they raised a lot of money because I spoke about this second look. So they built this mikvah, and they finish it, and they open it, and this woman comes over to the organization and says, I wish you guys would have been here when I was young. And the guy says, why? She says, I only have 3 children. I wanted to have 10. But it came out that my mikveh night was always Friday night. And I couldn't go Friday night because Sacramento didn't have a mikveh. And my ovulation was that night. Which meant that since I had to wait 24 hours, I couldn't get pregnant. So had there been a mikveh in Sacramento, I would have had 10 children. Because there wasn't, I missed that ovulation by 1 day, by 24 hours, and therefore all those times I could not have children. So the first look is, get over it, it's one night, go drive. The second look is 7 children didn't come to the world because there wasn't a mikveh in Sacramento. That's just one woman. How many others not? Vayar, vayaratz. When you look into something deeply, then you'll understand what's missing. Then vayaratz. Then Avraham Avinu ran. When I heard this, I was like, oh my gosh. I was in Sacramento for 22 years doing business. And I didn't take it seriously. Meanwhile, this woman had no mikveh Friday night, and she knew every single time that she had to go to mikveh Friday night, she had to wait till Motzei Shabbos, she wasn't going to get pregnant that month. For years. And Wallerstein was like, get over it! Drive to San Francisco Sunday night. What's the difference? The difference was that she couldn't get pregnant. Vayar. You have to look twice. If you look twice, then you'll get to really understand the meaning. Just something fascinating that was mentioned last night. Fascinating. Chachamim, tzaddikim, how smart they are. So, I don't know if it was Rabbi Bronsdorfer in Eretz Yisrael or what gadol it was. There was a woman that had this problem. And she came to this big tzaddik, and her problem was that she ovulated always the night before she was allowed to go to the mikveh. So she couldn't have children. So this couple was married for a long time, and they couldn't have children. It didn't work out, time-wise. So ovulation only works for 24 hours. So if she had to wait that extra day, because she had to wait that extra day, so she ovulated a day early, the doctor said, we can't help you. So she went to this big tzaddik. This is a true story. They said it last night. It was wild in Eretz Yisrael. And they said, I want to have children. You got to do something. But they can't bend the halacha. Halacha is she's tamei. They can't change the halacha. So this is what he told her to do. He said, get on a plane, the two of you, and moved to Australia for 3 months. Australia is 24 hours different. If you move to Australia, you'll make back that day, and you'll be tahar on the day of your ovulation. 2nd month she was in Australia, she became pregnant. You hear a chacham? The doctor said, I can't do anything. He took her to a place that the hours, her clock was off 24 hours because it's a day ahead. Australia is exactly a day ahead. Right now, it's 10 o'clock tomorrow. So she ended up, you hear what a tzaddik? The doctors could say, we can't help you. You know, Jewish thing, if you're a Jewish thing, we can't help you. And I think it was Rabbi Bronsdorfer. That's a double vayar. That's being able to see. That's being able to understand. That's being connected to HaKadosh Baruch Hu. The doctors can't do anything. And he figured out, just go to a place that's 24 hours different, and the whole thing will work out. It said, mamash, 2 months in, she became pregnant. That's Torah. That's Chachma. That's Bina. That's Das. That's a Rav. That's a Gadol. Not a doctor. So, when someone comes to you, and they need help. I'm criticizing myself. I was there 22 years. I could have helped build that mikveh. But I said to myself, so get in your car and drive 2 hours, go out to eat afterwards. I don't know, make it a whole day trip, make it a trip. What are they getting so crazy about? I didn't look deeper into that there was a woman there that didn't have 7 children or more because I didn't have the second vayar. So when someone comes to you and they need help, don't go by your first look. Go by your second look. Look into it a second time. There's a story, and we'll end with this. There's a story, an hour. There's a story in the Avas Chaim that I read last night also. Very fascinating story. He says the following. He says there was a girl, a woman, who was married, and between Mincha and Ma'ariv, so in Europe, between Mincha and Ma'ariv, they used to learn because it's too early. So the rabbi used to give a shir between Mincha and Ma'ariv, half an hour, 20 minutes, and then they would daven Ma'ariv. She loved to learn. So she would go in the Ezras Nashim every night when we would give the shir. Her husband was working, and she would go between Mincha and Ma'ariv and listen to a shir. This happened hundreds of years ago. One night, it must have been Wallerstein giving the shir. Because Avas Chaim said that the Rav kept talking and talking and talking and talking. Marech, he gave the longest speech of his life. He just didn't stop. And she was sitting there, and she was fascinated. But she didn't realize how long he was talking. And that was the night that she was supposed to go to the mikveh. And by the time she left shul, the mikveh was closed. And they had hours, and they didn't reopen for anybody. She ran back to shul. By the time she came back to shul from the mikveh that was closed, the shul was closed. And there was nobody there to help her. She knew, it's a story brought down to Avas Chaim, she knew that her husband wasn't religious, and that he didn't care if she went to the mikveh or not, and he didn't care if she was tameh. But she didn't want to live with him in sin, but she couldn't tell him that I didn't go to the mikveh tonight because I was listening to some rabbi talking, because she would get it for that. And she knew that he didn't care. So she couldn't go home. She couldn't go to her father, because her father would have said, the night of your mikveh, you go to a shir, what are you doing? Who told you to go listen to some rabbi? You don't have a mitzvah to learn Torah. That's for the men. What are you doing? So her father would have sent her back home also. He said, get out of here. So says the Avas Chaim, she lay down in front of the shul and she cried to Hashem. And she said, what am I going to do? I can't go home, Tameh, because my husband doesn't care, and he's going to do what he wants to do anyway, and it's going to be a big Avera, and what should I don't know what to do. And she started crying. All of a sudden, she's crying, laying at the steps of the shul, and a wagon drives up. Beautiful, gorgeous coach. And white horses. You could tell that whoever was in that coach was very, very wealthy. And this old man gets out of the coach, and he sees this girl laying on the floor crying. And he says to her, excuse me, we just came on a very, very long trip. My wife's not feeling well. do you know if they have a bathhouse? A bathhouse, that's what you usually have, where she could take a hot bath. Because from the derech, from the trip, she's in a lot of pain. She said, yes, there's a bathhouse, but I was just there a few minutes ago. It's connected to the women's mikvah, and it's closed. He said, who runs it? She said, so-and-so lives in it. He says, let's go to that house. He knocks on the door. The man comes downstairs. He takes one look at this coach. It's like a Maserati in the driveway. He takes one look at this coach. He's like, we got a live one here. Like, what? How can I help you? He says, I'll tell you the truth. My wife, we're on a long trip. She's very old. She's in a lot of pain. Do you have I hear that you own the bathhouse. Could you open it up for us? He goes, I'm really sorry. It's closed. He takes out a bag, a leather bag, full of golden coins. And he drops it in the guy's hand. He goes, it's open. Who said it's closed? It's open. So he says, I'll open it up for your wife, no problem. And he opens up the bathhouse. And the old woman turns to this young girl, this young woman, and she says to her, listen, I'm old. I don't want to go into the bath myself. Right? I could fall. I could hurt myself. Would you come inside with me and watch me that nothing should happen to me? She says, sure. So she goes inside with the old lady. She says to the old lady, listen, we're in here already. The mikveh is right next to this. Would you mind, after I watch you, if you be the mikveh lady and watch me go into the mikveh? She says, sure. No problem. So this young girl who the mikveh was closed for goes to the mikveh, and this lady is the mikveh lady and watches her go under. She's tahar. So she comes out with the old lady, the old man, and the old lady get back into the wagon. She's like, Hashem, look at Hashem, save my life. I don't have to do an Aveira. She's all excited. And I brought the wrong Avos Chaim in. I have the other one outside. But you should read this story in the Avos Chaim. He says it word for word. And he says that the old lady turned to this young girl and said, before we leave, I'd like to introduce who I am and who he is. I am Sarah Imenu, and he is Avram Avinu. And HaKadosh Baruch Hu sent us from Shemayim because he saw your tears and he knew how much you didn't want to do an Aveira, and that's why we're here. And she just like almost fainted, and when she turned around, the wagon was gone, the horses were gone, the lady and the man were gone, the street was empty. So Avos Chaim, there's not a storybook. That night, when she went to sleep, it says that Sarah Imenu came to her in a dream. And she said, I know that you feel bad that you went to the shir to learn, but you should just know that even though a woman is not chayiv in the mitzvah of Talmud Torah, Hashem has a lot of hana that you went to listen to a shir. That's the end of the story. So my bracha to everyone here is that even though you don't have a mitzvah of Talmud Torah, Hashem has a lot of hana that you all came tonight to the shir. Thank you. Hatzlacha.